And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ BP TV. Now, we are preparing for competition. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, preparing for competition was obsessive. Everything I would do for competition was like so serious. And the biggest thing is everybody's different. And I'm a bit of a hype monster. I need to get really excited. And the other thing which a lot of people don't do is consider the small things. And so those are the small things that can really change the way your day goes in terms of your energy, how focused you are, and really the results you get. And this is super important. So I'm going to talk you through exactly what has not only just worked for me, but worked for other athletes that I have coached. So let me talk you through it, guys. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. So first things first, we're going to talk about comp fitness. And there's specific things that you're going to need to do in order to get you ready. So it doesn't matter if you've trained a lot and this is like, you've done a bunch of comps and now you're going for a bigger comp, or you've never done a comp before. You need to know you've got to put in extra work, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what you need to do. The next thing on that also is your strategy. So there are certain elements around strategy which are not discussed either. Even though obviously if you're doing comp rounds, that might seem like enough. There is actually some specific training you need to do to make sure that when the adrenaline hits, you shake hands, it's all systems go, and you're not overwhelmed. And that's the biggest thing about competition. The noise, the adrenaline, and basically the sense of expectation and performance from people like watching you. There's all these things that can really upset your normal mode of doing jiu-jitsu, where you do really well. And we really need to make sure that you execute the way you plan to. And that's what strategy is all about. Number 3 is your pre-comp food. What do you eat the night before a comp? Now, I'm very specific about this. Joey, not so much. We have talked about this, and Joe's a bit more like, I just eat a normal meal. For me, that's not the case. And specifically, if you're trying to cut weight for a comp, that's a different thing too. And actually, we're not going to get into weight cutting too much today. If you do have some questions around cutting weight for BJJ competition, we can talk about it. And I think we will probably do a podcast on it at some stage in the very near future. There's a very good friend of mine, Reed Real, who is a nutritionist at the UFC Fight Center in Shanghai. And I'm going to see if we can get him on the podcast. So stay tuned for that one. But yeah, the meal the night before, and then what do you eat on the day? Because when you're competing, it's really hard to know exactly what to eat that's not going to upset your stomach, mess with your performance, and also give you enough energy to keep going all day. And I will give you a little bit of a surprise, guys. It's not acai. Just saying. Now, number 4 is hydration. So there's a couple of components to hydration that people tend to neglect, and we need to look at how you're managing that also with your caffeine intake, because plenty of people will take pre-workout or drink coffee or do different things to keep their energy up. I'm someone who does like to have coffee on comp day, and you've got to really monitor your energy over the course of the day, because that's something they don't tell you about jiu-jitsu. Even though on the comp registry, you might be on at 10 a.m., you may not get on until 1 p.m. or later still 5 p.m. and you've been in there all day. How do you manage your energy across the day so you have very good comp performance? Hydration is key. Then number 5 is how do you stay ready across the whole day? This is really tough because even though your match might be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes long and you work really hard, you need a process for being able to warm up. You also need a process for cooling down. You also need a routine that's going to keep you active but not make you tired. And then you need to know when it's time to just go lie down. And that's super important. And getting horizontal is a big part of that. And then getting yourself geared up to do it all again. And, you got to know when to stay and when to go. And we're going to talk about that. And then that, in summary, is going to give you the largest chunk of information you're going to need to have a really good comp day. Now, obviously, you need to train hard at jiu-jitsu, but let's talk about what we need to do to make it happen in addition to that. So, comp rounds. Almost every jiu-jitsu gym will have an opportunity for you to do sparring or competition rounds. Now, if you're a white belt, most competition, your comp rounds will sit at about 5 minutes. You should be prepared to do more. So the same for blue belts. Yours will be 6 minutes if you're doing IBJJF, purple belt 7 minutes, brown belt 8 minutes, black belt 10 minutes. But you actually need to be prepared to do more. But you also need to learn to get intense in that short window of time. And I'm going to talk about doing extra work with that. So, for example, within a 5 minute block of time, you may only be going hard for a short amount of it. And then there might be points of control, stalling, going out of bounds, all kinds of things. So it's rare that you're working the whole 5 minutes. What you need to do as a discipline is pick at least two of your comp rounds to push the whole time, working the whole time, passing the whole time. If you get a superior position, then move to another position, keep attacking, and push your heart rate as hard as you can for the entire time. Here's the thing: the body wants to relax, the body wants to stall, but you actually, whether you have a training partner who helps you be accountable or your coach, you need to push as hard as you can for at least the amount of time that you will be fighting. But I would say you need more than that. If you're a white belt, be prepared to do 6 minutes. If you're a blue belt, be prepared to do 7 minutes. Do that little bit extra because it is a competition. You are competing. You have to know there's someone else somewhere else working harder than you. And this isn't like insufficiency and making you insecure. This is just really real. So if you're not prepared to compete when they're not around, how do you expect to compete when they're dead set in front of you? You have to have the competition mindset that the competition is with yourself in the training hall, in the academy. The competition is to be better than before, and that requires a bit extra. So it is so important for you that you are doing that little bit extra. Now, let's have a look what we got here. Yes, that's right. Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. So definitely, also Koa, it's JT. Don't confuse me for Joey. He can't sport this kind of a beard. It's okay. I'll forgive you this one time. But if you call me Joey again, I'm going to have to block you from the YouTube account. No, I'm joking. It's all right. So here's the deal. We're going to talk about that extra conditioning. So if you think doing comp class is enough, it's not. You need to be doing additional rounds of conditioning if you intend to compete. Now, if you're someone who doesn't want to compete, that's fine. Just go to jiu-jitsu class, do everything normally. You're not trying to outperform anyone but yourself. That's fine. But competition is actually about outperforming others. As much as they say, oh, you're competing with yourself. You are, but you will physically have to go up against someone, especially if you're going to go in the absolute category, who is bigger and stronger than you. So you have to have something on your side, which is conditioning. You need to have greater fitness. Now, there's a great saying, which is fatigue makes cowards of us all. When we are tired, we cannot be strong. When we're tired, we cannot be fierce. We just want to give up. When you're exhausted, your body stops. Even if mentally you want to keep going, your body will stop. And then somebody will stop you. So if you are going to do multiple categories, like you're going to do gi, and you're also going to do no gi, and then you're going to do the absolutes, what this means is in the course of a day, you might have anywhere between 15 and 20 matches. It's a lot, my friends, and you really need to make sure you have the gas tank to be able to do it. So you need to do additional work outside of jiu-jitsu class to make sure you're fitter. The best style of training that you can do for this is GPP, which is general physical preparedness. This is the type of training like circuit training, which really covers all the bases through your legs, your core, your upper body, and generally focuses on strength endurance. Now, if you don't know what strength endurance is, I'll give you an example. So if we think about you doing 5 reps of a deadlift, and that is just strength, pure strength. And if we're working more 8 to 12 reps, we're looking at more hypertrophy, like muscle building, a weight that you can do 8 to 12 reps of, whether it's body weight or a particular set of dumbbells or kettlebells, that is more likely to build muscle, not guaranteed. But when you start working into the 15, 20, 30, 40 repetitions of a movement, that is strength endurance. And that is the kind of work you need to do to really push your level for BJJ competition. Super important. So make sure that you are doing structured workouts on top of what you're doing at jiu-jitsu to push your conditioning up. Now, relevant to telling you guys the exact program I want you to do, you're going to have to wait because that will be coming with the Bulletproof for BJJ app. We will be putting in conditioning as part of our stuff. So stay tuned for that. We haven't touched conditioning so far, not because we don't believe in it, just because we think for the best part, you need to train enough jiu-jitsu to make sure you're ready for comp. But additional training will help. We can get into that another time. So work your strength endurance. Now, here is a piece of advice which was given to me a long time ago, back in 2009, when I was in Rio in Brazil. And I was training at Gordo Jiu-Jitsu. And they were talking about Minotauro and his little brother, Little Nog, and talking about Brazilian fighters training quite late at night, training all the way to like midnight and 1 a.m. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? Because these MMA fighters would be fighting in Japan, say on Pride, and they would actually be fighting at midnight. They would have to be able to get warm, get ready, get G'd up to perform at 11 and 12 o'clock at night and fight as hard as they could. So a lot of their training was very specific to timing. So they were prepared to put in that effort to make it happen. You need to do the same. If you know your competition day is a Saturday, or if you know your competition day is a Sunday, you need to start making your hardest training on a Saturday or a Sunday. Don't rest then. Like, even if your gym doesn't have hard training at that time, you need to get some friends together and do a Shark Tank and push yourself really hard on that day and structure your training through the whole week so that you are geared up to work your butt off on the given day. And you work through your 7-day cycle over a course of 6 to 12 weeks to prepare you for a competition so that you know when Saturday hits or Sunday hits, you can work hard and your body is like, oh, Sunday, that's right. This is the day when we go to work. Now, the biggest mistake I see is people like, oh, Sunday's my rest day. But if Sunday's comp day, it's not your rest day. You need to make Monday your rest day and Sunday needs to be going all out. If you do not do this, your body is actually out of sync for comp. And it is super important that you are competition ready with your fitness. That means you need to be freshest and going hardest on comp day. So look at the dates, work out if it's a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and that's when you need to show up. And that's when you need to work the hardest. Just saying. All right, cool. Next thing, strategy. So I'm a big fan of strategy because I feel like only really elite jiu-jitsu athletes work hard on this. And this is something that's really important for you to understand about your own game and then also understand other opponents and in terms of maybe they have flaws in their strategy and that's where you can capitalize and that's where you can win. Oh yeah, I like me a bit of that apple cinnamon chamomile tea. Oh, warms the vocal cords, keeps my melodic voice coming through the airwaves. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to practice the start of the game. You should not start on the ground. If you're a competitor, always start standing. Even if your strategy is to pull guard, which is totally cool. Or if you want to do takedowns, great. But you need to start on the feet. If you're always starting on your knees, this is a bad habit as a competitor. Now, I understand I've run jiu-jitsu classes. A lot of the time, I will get my students to start on their knees just for safety. It has nothing to do with competition because for the best part, most of my students, they're not competing. They're just trying to learn jiu-jitsu. But I do have a small amount of students who really want to compete. I always make them stand up and I make them go to town on each other. I'm like, if you're going to pull guard, you have to practice pulling guard. You must always practice to start. So when you slap hands and bump knuckles, it's got to be on. That first 15 seconds is so important. So, for example, at Alliance BJJ in Sydney, where I train a couple times, once or twice a week with Adam Childs and Joey trains there as well, Adam puts us through this 15-second drill where you have to blitz. So one partner will be practicing to pull guard and trying to sweep, and the other partner is trying to get the takedown and pass as soon as possible. And you've got to bring that intensity, guys, because if you're not used to that, which is like the gun going off for the sprinter, if you're not ready to fire, there's every chance that you'll freeze or you'll kind of pause or hesitate, and the other person is going to take advantage. And it is so important that you react at the right time. That means you need to practice the start. Even if you practice it multiple times, not even rolling, you're like, right, I'm going to try and take you down. You're going to try and pull guard. We're going to scramble, and then we're going to reset. And you do this over and over again until you have perfected your start. So whether your strategy is to pull guard or to do a takedown or do a throw, it is absolutely imperative that you practice the start. Then, next step, we need to know what is your game. Are you sweeping? Are you doing a flying triangle? What is your game? What is your sequence? If you can't actually explain and demonstrate exactly what you're going to do in a very controlled situation, you will struggle to do it under the intense pressure, which is competition. So you need to make sure you're clear on what you're trying to do. And if you're not sure, talk to your coach, talk to your training partners and get feedback, because it is so important that you are so rehearsed that it is subconscious. You don't actually want to be thinking about it. We don't want to be using our prefrontal lobes when it needs to be back here in the instinct. It's got to be subconscious, because so many other things are going to be kind of clouding your ability to use your finer kind of prefrontal cortex, your finer decision-making skills. You need to be able to, under the most stress, make good decisions, which means your game needs to be subconscious. It needs to be automatic. Even if it's simplified, it doesn't matter. Whether that's takedown, pass, whatever it is, pull guard, or even just wrestle. You're just going to wrestle to tire the person out. You're not even going to try and pass guard. You're not even going to try and pull guard. You're just going to wrestle and wrestle and wrestle them. And once they fatigue, then you get them. That is a strategy, but you must be so clear on it that that is what you do. And do not deviate from the plan. Stick to the plan, my friends. This is key. Now, last but not least is practice your finish. So we've kind of got the beginning, the middle, and now we have the end. What is your best submission? Can you hit it from everywhere? Do you plan to submit your partner, or do you plan to outpoint them and control them? Now, don't get me wrong. I personally feel if you can go for the submission, that's great, because actually what that means is if you can submit your opponent, your match is shorter. Why would you want to go a full 5 to 10 minutes when the match could be over in 1 minute? That's efficient, my friends. You want to be like Mike Tyson. You want to be knocking them out. You don't want to have a long amount of fight time, because if you have 5, 10, 15, 20 matches in a day, if you're submitting people, you're spending less energy overall. So you actually need to practice your finishes from guard, from side control, from the back, from all positions. You need a go-to submission. It might be one particular submission or two, but you need to be extremely well-versed in practicing it over and over again from multiple positions. But make sure you understand the rule set. Don't be practicing knee bars if you're a white belt. Just saying. Now, food. Now, this is a big thing. A lot of people talk about this and people are like, oh man, like what's the best diet to follow? And look, we're not going to get into that because everybody is individual, but I'm going to give you guys a guideline that you can follow, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, carnivore. Like actually carnivore is not going to work that well. If you're on the carnivore diet, let's switch it up, because here's the thing that Joey and I both agree on and we talk about all the time is carbohydrate is king for BJJ. It's one of those things that like carbs of more recent years kind of got a bad rap, but really the fuel you need for good competition performance is carbs. So the night before, understand this, what you eat the night before competition is essentially what is in your liver and your muscles the next day. So the meal the night before is actually the most important for comp day. So the thing we want to maximize is carbohydrate and fat. They are the two fuel sources you need the most. Carbohydrate is number one, but then fat is also super essential. So in between, like when you're actually competing and fighting, you'll be using primarily blood glucose. But when you're recovering and coming back, your body will be using body fat just to keep, not just body fat, but fat from your digestive system and in your bloodstream to keep your energy going while you can refuel in between. And we are going to talk about that. So what does that look like? The reason why I encourage you not to have too much protein the night before is it's actually heavy. And it takes anywhere from, depending on how good your digestive system is, 12 to like, it can be even 24 hours. Let's give an example. Like if you went to American barbecue and you had a huge bit of like fatty brisket, which I love, right? It's going to take forever to go from here to the other end, which means it's going to take a lot of energy from your system to break down. Eating big chunks of meat the night before training, the night before competing, is actually going to take energy away from you. Digestion is the biggest energy requirement of the human body in any given day. So even if you compete and you expend all that energy rolling and fighting, the energy it takes to digest your food, you want to free that up so you feel light and good to go. So what I always recommend with any athlete that I work with is the night before competition, don't eat too much meat. You can eat a small amount of protein, like maybe some egg or definitely a protein shake, but make sure your meal is primarily like vegetables, carbohydrates, and fats, and try to keep your protein component minimal. All right, let's talk about the day of comp day. Same deal. I'm going to promote not too much protein. Like, yeah, if you want to have a little bit of eggs, that's okay. But you definitely do not want to be eating large amounts of meat on comp day. Now, I'm someone who loves meat, but let's understand this. The fuel you need is already in your body. The fitness and gas tank you need is already there. You're not training your fitness on the day of comp. You want to be as fresh as possible. So obviously a good night's sleep, but let's break down snacks because snacks are super important on comp day. So I've broken this up into like two categories of like a light snack and then like a medium to like slightly heavier snack. So fruit, number one, bananas, berries, pineapple, strawberries. Like these are actually low GI. Well, bananas, not so low GI, but they have fiber in them and potassium, which we need so we don't cramp up and kind of stuff up. But having low GI fruits or lower GI fruits means your energy will be more constant. So when I say GI, I mean glycemic index. If you don't know what the glycemic index is, that's okay. You can Google it. But basically, it means it's not going to spike your blood sugar. It's going to keep it pretty smooth. Now, the next thing is maybe a muesli bar or some kind of nut bar. What is great about that is it's slightly more complex, but it'll digest quickly. So even if you've eaten it, within about 15 to 20 minutes, it'll be well on its way to being digested and moving to the next stage. Because here's the thing we don't realize, right? We have our stomach and gastric emptying. When we put food into our stomach, it munches it up and it holds it there. It will sit there from anywhere from 40 to 90 minutes before it goes whoop and moves on to the next stage. You do not want to have food in your stomach when you're exercising. You want it to be on to the next stage into your intestines and your stomach to be empty. And primarily what's going into your stomach at that time is liquids, hydration, right? So fruit, muesli bars, rice crackers is another great source of carbohydrate. Very simple, digests very easily, absorbs easily, and keeps you going. But then we also want to have a look at, and this is more about when you're actually in between rounds. So let's say you're at a grappling industries competition, right? So grappling industries, they do a round robin. So you'll roll and then say it's only you and another person in that bracket. You'll have to fight again. So you might only have like 5-10 minutes in between. If you only have 5 or 10 minutes between a match, you shouldn't really be eating. That's what I'm saying. But let's say you roll again and then they're like, oh, look, okay, you both won a match. You're going to have to come back and fight the final. You're going to have to go chill for 10, 20 minutes. That is an opportunity for you to get in some glucose. So glucose lollies, which we're talking about like snakes, frogs, bag of lollies, not licorice per se, even though licorice can be, a lot of glucose syrup in it. Because it has aniseed and other elements, it's more acidic and harder to digest. So the reason why I say glucose lollies as opposed to fruit in this instance is it's more quickly absorbed than fruit. It just goes straight through. It's like literally in your stomach, into the bloodstream, straight to the muscles. Whereas fructose has to go to the liver to be broken down and converted before it goes out to the muscles. Whereas, jelly beans, snakes, frogs, just glucose lollies go straight to the muscles, which is what you need as fast as possible. Now, for some of you out there, you might be like, this sounds crazy. But do the research, my friends. I'm telling you, glucose lollies are the perfect snack in between matches, provided you've got a good 10 to 20 minutes. If you've only got 5 minutes, you're probably better off for maybe a sip of Gatorade or something. And we're going to talk about that relevant to hydration next. But I'm not a big promoter of lollies in day-to-day life, but in this instance, it is very appropriate. Cool. Now let's talk about a medium-sized snack. So let's say you finished your weight division, and this speaks to you, Koa, talking about doing multiple weight classes, and then you're going to do the absolute. So you fought in the gi in your weight class, and now you're going to do the absolute. And you've got about an hour's break between your weight class and the absolute. What are you going to eat? I'm going to say right now, a peanut butter sandwich. Actually, I have a very specific version of this. I really love almond butter, and I will even go with a almond and Nutella, or a kind of chocolate-based spread to get the glucose, get the fat, and get the carbohydrate in there. And even though that's going to take a little while to digest, it's going to take up to an hour to digest. That is really going to help get your body to come down from this crazy intense state to being calmer. It's going to help you relax and recover. And then it's also going to give you the energy you need to fight another 5 matches, because you may have burned out most of your energy tanks from the fuel from the night before. You need to restore. Now, nuts as well. For some people out there who don't eat bread, just eating a handful of peanuts, cashews, Brazil nuts is actually going to be fantastic for giving you fat, fiber, and carbohydrate, which is going to be longer, slower burning energy, which will help you keep kicking throughout the whole day. The other thing is hummus. I'm a massive fan of hummus, guys. Now, if you know somebody who makes hummus, that's the best. But if you are just getting hummus from supermarkets, no problem. Having rice crackers or corn crackers with hummus is a great way to get fat, protein, and fiber. And that is going to help, same thing, bring your whole nervous system down a notch, help you calm down, give you some energy, and get you ready for the next stage. Chips. Now, this sounds strange, right? But having some salty chips is not a problem. Potato chips, corn chips, rice puffs, any kind of, some people have chickpea chips, that's fine. Because it actually only takes about half an hour to 45 minutes for you to digest that. It's going to give you a lot of good energy. It's fat, it's carbohydrate, and it's also salt, which is an essential thing you need when you're sweating all day. You know what it's like, right? If you've ever been in the competition hall, even if you're not competing, you're just watching, and the intense environment of just all the body sweating, and it's artificial, and it's also kind of, it feels very oppressive. I find that if I'm at a comp and I go outside, I'm like, oh my God, phew, it's such a release of fresh air. You feel good. But when you're in that comp hall, it's really sweaty. It's like you're in a big kind of man-made body heat sauna, right? It sounds gross, but it's kind of what it is. You need sodium to help you stay moving. So chips is not a bad thing. Last but not least, protein shake. So having a protein shake, very helpful, and also amino acids. So even though I have said having amino acids during training is not good, amino acids are fantastic for helping your nervous system even out and helping you bounce back. So whey protein and amino acids are great to have if you've got about 60 minutes between when you finish a division and start another one. That's what I recommend. Now, hydration, electrolytes is number one. You've got to make sure that you're not just drinking water. If you're just drinking water and you've got a lot of adrenaline going on, basically what happens when you have a lot of adrenaline, it blocks antidiuretic hormone. So antidiuretic hormone stops your body from getting rid of all the water. It stops you from urinating. Antidiuretic hormone stops you from going to the toilet all the time. So when you're flushed with adrenaline, your body actually doesn't want to be doing any digesting. And actually, it's more likely for you to sweat and lose water and dehydrate you. Because when you're full of that much adrenaline, it's fight or flight. Your body thinks it's under attack. It's just trying to survive that moment. It's not like, oh, we're going to be doing this for 12 hours, which is what you'll do when you're at a BJJ competition. So it is so important that you have an electrolyte drink, whether you have hydrolyte or element, LMNT, which is a great supplement, but it's very expensive in my opinion for what it is, but it's a great supplement. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I would love to be, but it's just not. I'm not on that level just yet. Watch this space. Next thing you know, I'll be wearing that Element shirt. I'll be like, oh, guys, look, I just want you to get a packet, click my link. But check it out. The next thing on this is sports drink powders. So a lot of people will drink Powerade or Gatorade, right? But you can't control the mix, and you actually need some practice on this. So creatine has been shown to be helpful, definitely with weightlifting, but creatine for jiu-jitsu, even though they've shown it can also help with decision making. I would say it's not as helpful as it would seem. It's not that it doesn't work. Definitely creatine has its benefits, but on competition day, I would say no. I would say creatine is probably more helpful in preparation for comp as opposed to actually on the day. That's what I would say. That said, if you enjoy it, you've got to think that there's so many things that go on, whether it's flavor, smell, you want to have a routine that you can stick to. And this is what I wanted to say relevant to having a sports drink powder. You want to be using that sports drink powder to the right ratio in training, as well as when you do your comp day training. So when you come to the actual competition, you're doing the same thing. It's routine. So if you have practiced having creatine the morning of your comp day training, that's fine. You could repeat that. But I would say that creatine isn't as beneficial for a competition day in jiu-jitsu as it is in the weight room or doing other sorts of intense exercise in preparation for the comp. I hope that helps. Amino acids and then also coconut water. People love coconut water. Why is coconut water good? It's high in potassium. Now, if you get the really cheap coconut water, it doesn't have the same level of potassium because basically they pasteurize it and they dehydrate it and then they have like a coconut powder and then they rehydrate it with water and then it's like, oh, coconut water. But actually, nutritionally, it sucks because it doesn't have the magnesium and it doesn't have the potassium. So if you're going to go with coconut water, which I do like, I haven't gone with it more recently because I'm being stingy and I don't want to pay for that. I'd rather eat a banana and drink some water. But if you love coconut water, which is a great thing to have to keep you hydrated, check the back, turn it around, look at the nutritional panel on the back and check that it has a good amount of potassium. If potassium and magnesium is not listed on the back of your coconut water, ditch it. It is no good. Pay an extra $1 or $2 and get the good nutrition you need, because that is why you would drink coconut water other than trying to pretend you're on the beach in Rio sipping on an actual coconut. Last but not least, guys, caffeine versus water intake. Now, I'm actually going to put a note here. Now, if you guys have any other questions relevant to competition, I have done a lot of competitions, even though more recently as a brown and black belt, I did compete twice as a brown belt, but I haven't competed as a black belt. Competition is my obsession. And I have competed in judo in the last kind of couple of years, even though COVID has kind of stuffed me up. I stuffed us all up, and I will be back on the competition mat for judo very soon. So keep your eye out for that. I'll be applying all of these tactics and can kind of talk you through that process even more down the track. But caffeine is a big part of what I do day to day. And I will space my caffeine out across a day if it's a big comp day. I want to make sure I don't have too much caffeine too soon. I want to make sure I have like small amounts of caffeine more regularly throughout the day where I need it, because I'm going to have enough adrenaline just coming off the mat. I want to have enough energy to be in peak arousal. So this comes from sports psychology, where you as an individual have your brain excited enough that you can execute your skills to maximum intensity without being redlining and going straight off the top, because then you can't even function. You're so overwrought. Your brain activity is actually disrupted and your skill level will drop down. So if you get really angry or really anxious, that is going to mess with your game plan. We want to get peak arousal. And for me, that's probably like having 2 shots of espresso. So that's about 160 milligrams of caffeine, which is like your standard kind of energy drink. And then also, you want to make sure you're measuring how much caffeine you're having versus how much hydration, like how much electrolyte and water you're having. So this is the ratio. I'm going to put it down. 155. So Koa has said, as 155 pounder, do you recommend not playing guard based strategies against heavier weights for comp, i.e. sweep from guard, stay on top, rather than play guard for a full 5 minutes with submission attempts? Okay, like as a lightweight guy going into the absolute, this is my advice. If you have a takedown game, I would employ it. If someone's really big, there's nothing to say you can't beat them from guard. You're just going to take a lot of punishment. So, yes, definitely, I would never encourage anybody to play guard for 5 minutes. It doesn't make sense. You need to submit the person inside that 5 minutes. You do need to sweep them or take their back. Like being in front of someone bigger and heavier than you just means you're going to suffer more. So, actually, strategically, that's very flawed. You're going to waste energy. You're more likely to get injured. And that's just not superior strategy. So, look, if you can take a bigger person down and win that, great. But if you are a guard player and you plan to pull guard, you want to get out of harm's way as soon as possible. So you want to get the back, get the sweep, and work from top as soon as you can. And here's the thing, it's kind of crazy. Big people, it's very rare they have a good guard. Very rare. Unless they're like a Hodger Gracie, want to play close guard and crush you. You don't go there. You're going to sweep them and not let them get close guard. So, yeah, my advice, Koa, is as soon as you can, get the hell out of there. You want to play your game, but you don't want to be underneath the steamroller. That's not what you need, because that is a surefire recipe for getting injured. Don't get me wrong. Mikey Musumeci, he's amazing. He's very strong, very flexible, and incredible athlete. But you don't want to be the 55, 60 kilo guy underneath the 120 kilo guy. Just saying. Cool. Now, here's the deal. Caffeine to water balance. So the caffeine to water ratio is 1 to 3. 1 to 3. So let me explain that. What does that mean? So for every shot of espresso or for every 80 milligrams of caffeine you would consume, you need at least 3 cups of water. That's a bit of water, right? So if you're going to have a bit of caffeine throughout the day when you are competing, it is so important for you to be maintaining higher amounts of hydration. Like, I can't explain it enough, guys. Caffeine is going to dehydrate you. It is going to make you get rid of water out of your body, and you actually need it. If you consume too much caffeine, the chance of you cramping, dehydrating, and your performance dropping is insane. So it is incredibly important that you are keeping your hydration levels up if you're having caffeine. So if you have a strong latte or however you take your coffee, like me, I like it to have a double espresso. I need to make sure I have 6 glasses. So a glass of water is 250 mils of water. So 6 times that, that's, what are we saying? 1.5 liters of water for every double espresso. So if I have like 3 double espressos over the course of a comp day, I need to be having like 4.5 liters of water just to keep up with my coffee intake. Don't even worry about how much I'm going to be sweating when I'm competing. So that's something you need to consider when you are messing with caffeine. Now, last but not least, how to stay ready all day. This is tough. And it was a good point before. You do your weight division, and then you think, I'm going to do absolute, and now I'm going to do no gi, and now I'm going to do no gi absolute. And you're there all freaking day. So you need to have a very precise warm up, which is just enough to get you ready, to get you in that peak arousal state and not too excited. And then you also need to have a cool down process. So your cool down process, for example, might be to take off your gi top or change your rashi, cool down, someone fans you with a towel, you take your hydration, eat your glucose lollies, and then you stay moving to be able to be ready for your next match. Now, you may not get the chance to leave the mat. Like you're on the side of the mat waiting for the next round, and then you're on. So you compete for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're off for 5 to 10 minutes. You're on for 5 to 10 minutes, you're off for 5 to 10. Like this is typically what happens if you're at comp. So you may not get a chance to really get away from the mat. you still need to have your drinks there. You still need to have your coach or your partner there with the towel to help cool you down. You still need a method to help try and bring you back down to a sense of a level of stability or homeostasis. So even though your heart rate will still be high, you need to bring it back down so you can get more oxygen in, so you've got more energy for the next match. If you completely ignore this, you are going to burn out within 2 to 3 matches. So if there's 5 or 6 matches in your bracket, you're not making the finals. Does that make sense? Also, when you're in between divisions, so you've already fought 4 or 5 matches and you know that in an hour or two's time, you need to be ready to go again, you need to be able to disconnect. Go outside the gym or the basketball center or wherever your competition is being held and just walk for 20 minutes and just breathe the air. Now, for me, I actually like to meditate. I will actually go and lie down and do my specific breathing for 10 minutes to help recenter my mind and think about winning and visualizing my matches going the way I want them to go. This is a very powerful thing and it has helped me a lot. It's definitely helped me in judo. Visualization of how I complete the takedown and how I grip has helped me a lot. And I'll be honest, like I've won a fair few judo matches. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's all down to the visualization, but breathing and visualization is key for you really making sure that you are practicing jiu-jitsu while your body is calm. So when you're out there in the storm, you just execute straight away. So here's the thing. You need a cool down process. What does that look like? There was a great study done of judo athletes where they used frozen towels. So they wet the towels, they folded them, froze them, and then put them in an esky. So in between matches, the athletes would put frozen towels under their armpits and between their legs. And they actually found that they had an improvement in recovery and performance by 40%. That's huge, guys. That's massive. So, frozen towels, I don't know if you can be bothered to do it, but even an ice pack, if you've got ice packs in the esky with your food, with all your drinks and your cooler stuff, that will actually help bring the body temp down. And Leonardo Nogueira, now a lot of people don't necessarily know him, but he was the absolute champion, I think back in 2010 or 11. He beat Buchecha. He was a super heavyweight champion 2 or 3 times. Like he was a fair beast in terms of gi jiu-jitsu. And he recently won World Masters. Like the guy is a monster. He would take not a cold shower, but a cool shower between every single match. As soon as he got off the mat, he'd go to the bathrooms, take his gi off, and have a cool shower. And then would towel off and put his gi back on. And he said that helped him stay ready for every single match, which I think is actually phenomenal. But you may not have access to a shower. So you've got to go, okay, you have to know when to reset. Getting horizontal is the easiest thing you can do to lower your heart rate, improve your circulation. And if anything, if your forearms or your legs are gassed, put your legs up against the wall so your feet are elevated, your legs are straight, and this will help the venous return, which will help get rid of the lactic acid and the waste products back to your body and if back to your lungs so you can get new oxygen in. But if you have a very understanding partner, they can massage your legs and massage your arms, and that will also help. So if you have a break between categories, get horizontal for at least 10 minutes. But this is a word of warning. You don't want to cool down completely. Stay moving. This is very important. If you cool down too much, the adrenaline will wear off completely. And then you actually have to work really hard to get the adrenaline back up. And sometimes that is where you can't come back. Your nervous system will bottom out. And then when you go to perform, you're not going to get the performance you want. And the other person who stayed ready will get you. So here's the thing. You have to bring yourself back down to like maybe 60% or 70% of like peak excitement. And you have to stay moving. Walk. I'm not saying you got to jog around the arena or do jumping jacks or any kind of nonsense like that, but stay moving. Do your mobility, do your stretches, do some squats, go talk to people, walk around, manage your psychology, but keep your body moving because this is the key to keeping your blood circulating and really getting the nutrients to the muscle in between divisions. Cool. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. If you have any other questions relating to competition performance or getting yourself ready for a competition, very happy to help give you any more information. Okay, Koa with another question. Getting rid of cramps between matches. Magnesium uptake recommended. 100%. Magnesium spray, actually, you need to get magnesium. It's called magnesium oil, but it's just magnesium chelate in a water form, but it feels oily. Magnesium spray on the affected muscles, calves, forearms, whatever muscles, hamstrings that might have cramped up, spray it on there and get it massaged. Magnesium spray helps get rid of cramps. Massage, magnesium spray for the win. Hunan, man, good to see you too. I appreciate you tuning in, taking the time on a Sunday. And guys, there's going to be some comps coming up. If you need some more advice, hit us up and we'll let you know. And like I said, very soon I should be doing a podcast with my friend Reed Real so I can get you guys the best information on how to cut weight for BJJ. All right, my friends, I hope you have a great week. I hope you have some good jiu-jitsu and you stay healthy. So between now and when I see you next, stay bulletproof.